The Will Flanagan Show on 1480 WSAR and 95.9 FM Fall River. To talk with Will, call 508-673-1480. 508-673-1480. Now, here's Will Flanagan.
And good afternoon again, everybody. I want to welcome you back here to the Will Flanagan Show here on the legendary WSAR 1480 AM and 95.9 FM. And joining me in studio are the candidates for the 8th District State Representative seat here in southeastern Massachusetts, the incumbent Democrat Paul Schmid and the Republican challenger Evan Gendreau. Before the start of the debate here, we drew essentially numbers, and Evan got to go first with the opening. And I want to welcome both gentlemen into the studio. And Evan, I will turn the microphone over to you to make your opening statement. Tell us a little bit about who you are and
Sure.
What made you want to run for this seat.
Well, thank you, Will, and thank you to WSAR for hosting this. I'm running because I strongly believe that our district deserves a new voice at the State House. The people of Westport, Fall River, New Bedford, and Freetown deserve a representative that will stand up for fiscal responsibility, a lower tax and regulatory burden, supporting our public safety and law enforcement, and increasing accountability and transparency in government. A little bit about my background. I live in Westport now, originally from Fall River. I'm a student at UMass Dartmouth, graduating in December. And I'm running for our teachers. I'm running for our law enforcement officers, our police officers, our firefighters. I'm running for people like my grandfather, who's a veteran. I'm running for our frontline workers and people affected by the pandemic. So there's a lot of important issues at stake in this election, and that's why I decided to throw my hat in the ring.
Representative Schmid, you've been the state representative now for this district for how many years?
Well, it's 10 years now, Will. I can't believe that it's gone by so quickly.
And what's making you seek re-election to the seat?
So, Will, first of all, I want to thank you for hosting us this afternoon. I also want to thank WSAR. This is clearly the premier way of reaching out to folks on the South Coast, and it's a fitting place for myself and my opponent to discuss our differences. I do have one request of you, though, first, and that is that I wish to heck you would run your show later in the evening. I love to listen to you, but we never get out of the State House until your show is over at 6 o'clock, so I don't get to listen to you. Would you take that under consideration?
Noted. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Getting back to me, I have a passion for service. My service started many years ago when I served in the United States Marines. Here in our community in Westport, I first served on a master plan committee 40 years ago after helping Claude Ledoux get elected as a selectman. During the first decade of the 2000s, I served on the Water and Sewer Committee. I served on the committee to bring tax incentive financing, so-called TIF committee. I served on the Finance Committee and was a chair of it. And then a seat opened up on the Select Board. I ran for that, was elected, really enjoyed my opportunity to work on community-wide issues for Westport. And shortly after that, Senator Menard decided to retire. Representative Michael decided to go for her seat, and I said to myself, this is a wonderful opportunity to try to work for a broader area. And so that's what motivated me to run for state representative.
And I'll hold you there, Representative. And, over the next 45 minutes as we go up to the 5 o'clock hour and when we cut the program off, I really want to keep it as a free-flowing discussion. I can tell I got no notes, no agenda here. And I really want to get into your minds as candidates. And for when the people go and vote who live in those districts, they have a better understanding of who you two gentlemen are. Now, Evan, I believe this is the first time you're running for office.
Yes.
And you told me why you want to run. Why did you pick this seat, and do you think Paul Schmidt's doing a good job, and can you do a better job?
I chose this seat because there's a lot of potential in the South Coast. I had the opportunity to work on a U.S. Senate campaign in 2018, where I heard a lot of the concerns that people have throughout the Commonwealth.
Is that Jeffrey Deal?
Yes.
Okay.
I then worked at the Public Policy Center in Dartmouth, where I co-authored reports on economic development, workforce development, health policy, among others. So these are important issues that I identified, particularly in this area. And I think there's a great opportunity for growth in the South Coast and in this district. And I think it's good just to have a different perspective in government, and it helps for accountability. The last time a Republican ran in this seat was 1996. So it's been quite a few years, and I think just having another voice in government is important in bringing a different perspective to the table.
Now, Representative Schmid, Evan's a Republican. He's running on the Republican side of the ticket. You're a Democrat here in Massachusetts, and some of the criticisms he's launched at you has been that your stance is on taxes, and we hear that a lot in Massachusetts, that sometimes it's Taxachusetts. Are you proud of your voting record, and do you feel that that's a fair portrait of you or someone who has voted to raise taxes over the last 10 years you've been a state rep?
Yeah, so I have, that's a very good question, and thank you for that, Will. We have voted as a House for a 5-cent gas tax. That was done earlier this year before COVID started. And I'm sure that if COVID had been in place there, that never would have been voted. But why did I vote for that? Frankly speaking, I get more complaints about potholes than I do about an extra 5 cents in gas tax, which would, for most people, equate to about 75 cents a week. If that 5-cent gas tax were put into place, and it won't be because the Senate won't vote for it, and we wouldn't vote for it again if it came up, given the COVID conditions. But if it had gone into place, Fall River would have received an extra $1 million in money for roads and bridges. And I don't have to tell you the condition of roads and streets here in Fall River. You fought with it for many years. The infrastructure here just has been allowed many years ago to decay, and the current level of infrastructure money that Fall River receives from the state is not adequate. And I think that $1 million extra would have really made a difference. By the way, for Westport, it would have been an extra $300,000. For Freetown, $200,000. And for New Bedford, $1 million.
Evan, you've been critical of
Sure.
Paul on this issue, on his votes, especially when it comes to taxes. I'll give you a rebuttal.
Sure. This is a vote that took place after 2 straight years of a surplus of over $1 billion in our state. So our state doesn't have a revenue problem, it has a spending problem. And there are certainly areas where we can reallocate money and utilize excess funds that we have towards projects in infrastructure. And although 5 cents doesn't seem significant, there have been proposals to increase the gas tax without a vote in the legislature. And the voters spoke very clearly back in 2014 in a referendum where they voted that down. And there's still efforts to push that through. So even though it doesn't seem like a lot to some of our representatives who may be well off, it doesn't impact. It doesn't affect whether or not somebody has to go to work or somebody has to commute to their job. So even though it seems negligible, it can be quite significant.
State Representative?
So my opponent mentions the surplus that the state generated in the last couple of years. Aren't we now blessed? Aren't we relieved that we have a $3.5 billion surplus? That surplus is going to help us weather this pandemic economy. We've been told that the state is looking at a deficit of $4 to $5 billion in this fiscal year. How do we bridge that gap? What do we do? Whose budget do we cut? Do we cut local aid, which goes to pay the salaries of police and firefighters? Do we cut our education money from the state to Fall River, which goes to pay for our teachers? My opponent says that he's doing this for the firefighters and the teachers. But if you're talking about reducing the money that comes from the state, you're talking about cutting salaries and cutting positions.
Let's switch gears for a moment. You bring up public servants. One of the public servants I want to talk about are police officers. Throughout the summer months and even now as we go into fall, we see civil unrest across America, especially here in Massachusetts. Not so much have we seen it here in Bristol County, but to our north in Brockton, we've seen a lot of it. In Boston, we've seen a lot of it. You got Support the Blue Line, Black Lives Matters, a lot of focus on Breonna Taylor, George Floyd. When it comes to policing, what's your take on defunding the police? Do you support the initiatives to defund the police, or do you think cities and towns like Fall River and Westport and New Bedford should be investing more money in policing? Evan, I'll let you take that.
I don't support defunding the police, and if I could just for a second on the tax
Sure.
On the tax issue, tax hikes are not the answer. By reducing the taxes on individuals and working families and our small businesses, that's how we stimulate the economy, especially in the recovery of the pandemic. That's how people are going to go back to work. That's how our state recovers its revenue that we've lost over the last 8 months. So that's what we should be looking into, and not increasing taxes. But on the police issue, sure. I am not in favor of defunding the police, and I think a lot of the claims to improve our police departments require increased investment in our public safety departments. I've had the opportunity to meet with police officers and firefighters and public safety officials, and peaceful protests that have happened are a constitutional right, and they're warranted, and it's great to see that people participate in the process and are engaging in these issues. And it's important that we have a productive conversation about ways that we can improve it, whether it's increasing body cameras, increasing the use of training programs. So there are concrete actions that we can take to reform these systems, but I'm not in favor of defunding.
Representative Schmid, there was a reform bill up on Beacon Hill. How did you vote on it, and what's your stance on defunding?
Sure. So thank you for raising the issue of defunding, Will. And I would like to ask my opponent why he has been running photoshopped pictures in Facebook of me standing with a sign that says I support defunding police. Nothing could be further
it's not true.
From the truth. I have never supported defunding police, and as a matter of fact, as I think every man and woman in blue on the South Coast knows, I, along with several of my colleagues here in the South Coast, voted against the police reform bill. Why did I do that? I didn't think it was fair and balanced. We all recognize that we have work to do with our police. They say they agree they'd like to have more training. But the concept of having a police review board without a single policeman on it was something I could not stand for. Defund police, I have never supported that, but my opponent has been running Photoshop pictures in Facebook, and I don't think it's a pleasant way.
I'll let you respond to that. Have you done any Photoshop?
No, that is simply not true.
Yeah.
Our campaign, if you go through all of our pages, you can look right now to our listeners looking. All of our pages are positive. We've not engaged in any negative campaigning whatsoever. Our campaign hasn't shared any photos that's being spoken of. So we've been focused on positive campaigning and putting our messages out there, and that's what we'll continue to do. But regarding the police bill itself, this is a bill that had no input from a lot of minority police officer organizations. This is a bill that worked to get rid of qualified immunity. This is a bill that there were 45 amendments to a 75-page bill that legislatures initially had less than 48 hours to read and vote on. So that's just not good policymaking. And it's not a bill that I think should be passed.
COVID-19 has dominated our lives since probably February. We've seen businesses close. We've seen people die. Families get sick. Charlie Baker is the governor of Massachusetts. He's been very proactive on restrictions, more so than somebody, let's say, like Governor DeSantis from Florida, who's pretty much reopened the state in Florida. What would you rate the governor on how he's handled the pandemic, and what would you do differently, if anything? Representative, I'll let you take it first.
Yeah, thank you. And as in many things here in Massachusetts, I would give the governor a high mark. I think he's worked very closely with the legislature, and I think that is a hallmark of his administration, and I think it's what people want. They don't want to see the bickering and politicking that goes on in Washington. They want to see people, their elected servants, working for them. And I'm very proud of the fact that I personally work well with the governor, as do my colleagues down here. And I'm very proud of the fact that I can pick up the phone and call the lieutenant governor to ask her advice, to give her my thoughts. I think the governor has done a good job on COVID-19. I think he's been very aware, very receptive, particularly to issues from businesses. And I'm thinking of the restaurants that had such a problem in the beginning. Working with the legislature, the governor reached out, allowed restaurants to open outside. He allowed them to defer their sales tax deposits for 3 or 4 months. He allowed liquor to go, hard drinks to go. All of these were efforts to keep restaurants in business. And, you know, they're such an important part of our small business locally that that's part of his reaction that I applaud.
Evan? I would agree, and I would also give the governor high marks as well. I think this is a governor that's shown his commitment to data-driven policy, to science-driven policy, to listening to public health experts in the field. It's a policy that's been guided by many public health officials, and I applaud him for that. It's a very serious issue, the reopening of our state, and ensuring that everybody takes measures to protect themselves and to protect others. And a lot of our, I would say all of our businesses have been compliant and working with the government throughout the reopening process. But it's important that we also support them as well. I mean, a report came out that estimates between 25 and 30% of restaurants and retailers won't reopen in our state. So it's a very serious issue that we should be supporting our local businesses and having a robust policy to make sure that we can get back to work in a safe manner, protecting public health while also ensuring that our economy grows.
We're going to take a commercial break, and when we come back, I want to get your thoughts on some of the national things that are going on. I feel that when voters go to the polls, they often vote with who they identify with. So I want to get your take on some of the issues that are happening nationally. I also want to speak with you regarding the eviction moratorium that will be lifted soon, as people possibly will be losing their apartments or possibly also their homes through foreclosure. And you're listening to the Will Flanagan Show. We have the two candidates running for the 8th district here in Massachusetts for state representative incumbent Democrat Paul Schmid and Republican challenger Evan Gendreau. We'll be right back after these words.
Sue, what are you doing?
Darn it, you caught me. I'm practicing the polka.
And what's all that?
That? Well, that's a guamki, and those are pierogies, and this is kielbasa, and I'm practicing my Polish food eating, too.
Sue, pace yourself.
I know, but somewhere inside me there's a Polish princess.
I think your Polish princess is halfway out.
Hey, all I know is we're broadcasting live from the annual Polish Food Festival, and I'm going to be ready. Now get out of the way.
Join Will Flanagan for a live broadcast at the Blessed Trinity Parish on Friday, October 23rd from 4 to 6 p.m. for the annual Polish Food Fest. COVID safety measures are followed. Drive up for food pickup. Come hungry and wear your fat pants.
This is Barry Steinberg from Direct Time Auto Service. Our local business and the livelihoods of our 70 employees are at risk because car manufacturers are starting to use new technology to restrict access to your car's mechanical data. That will force you to expensive dealerships and squeeze out smaller, independent repair shops. Question 1 will protect your choice in car repair and save thousands of local jobs. Please vote yes on Question 1. Yes on Right to Repair.
Paid for by Massachusetts Right to Repair Committee.
Community Autism Resources is an organization with locations in Bridgewater and Swansea whose goal is to provide its families, individuals with autism spectrum disorder, professionals, and their community with resources and useful information by working collaboratively with families, professionals, and members of the community to enhance the quality of life for the person with ASD, and by providing individuals with a broad spectrum of quality resources rooted in current research and eclectic in their approach. Donald J. Medeiros sends special congratulations to Team Perfect Chase of the Community Autism Resources Organization. For these reasons, the Donald J. Medeiros Insurance Agency is proud to announce that Community Autism Resources is October's Organization of the Month.
Donald J. Medeiros Insurance is teaming up with 1480 WSAR to highlight an organization every month. Visit WSAR.com and click on the Organization of the Month award logo for complete details. Donald J. Medeiros Insurance and 1480 WSAR want you to live better in the South Coast. Tune in every Saturday morning from 9 to 11 for All About Cars with your host, Ralph Medeiros of Ralph's Auto Center in New Bedford. Ralph Medeiros has been in the automotive business for decades and wants to share his knowledge with you. Learn about the latest automotive trends and how to find the best value while shopping for a car. Ralph will provide you with cost-efficient solutions, honest answers, and advice. All About Cars with Ralph Medeiros every Saturday morning from 9 to 11 on 1480 WSAR. Live and local all day long. Your source for local news and local views. WSAR and WSAR.com. Now, the Will Flanagan Show on 1480 WSAR and 95.9 FM Fall River. To talk with Will, call 508-673-1480. 508-673-1480. Now, here's Will Flanagan.
And welcome back to the Will Flanagan Show here as we continue with our debate between the two candidates for the 8th District here in Massachusetts, Paul Schmid and Evan Gendreau. Evan, you're a Republican, running on the Republican ticket. Our Republican governor has come out and stated that he would not be voting for Donald Trump in the presidential election. Have you made up your mind on who you're voting for when it comes to president?
I have. I'm a Republican, as you mentioned, but my main focus is on the issues impacting our community and our state. I've not made national politics a concern in my campaign. I think it's important that the people of the 4 towns in the district have a voice and focus on the issues that are directly affecting them. And I think it speaks to the divisiveness of our national politics, unfortunately, as well. I've stayed above the divisiveness and the partisanship. I've expressed my ability and my dedication to working with both sides of the aisle. But one thing I would like to see at the national level is working together and compromise on a COVID-19 relief package. Both the Republicans and the Democrats have set forth their own packages, and I would like to see some compromise in that area. It's one of the main issues that I hear about on the campaign trail. It's something that's important for a lot of people that are still out of work, for businesses that have not reopened yet. And right here in the state of Massachusetts, over 2/3 of the deaths due to COVID-19 have been in nursing homes. So I think it's important that our policy not only helps those that are unemployed in our businesses, but also those in nursing homes as well.
State Representative Schmid, who will you be voting for, or have you made up your mind on who you're voting for when it comes to president?
So I believe that our focus should be here in Massachusetts and on the South Coast. And I think that all of us are looking forward to getting past November 3rd. This has been such a divisive time for our country. And it's not what all of us want, and I think we all feel that it is not helpful. It doesn't move us forward. So most of the people I speak to say, we just are looking forward to voting. And by the way, many, many people are voting early. We're looking forward to voting early and having it done and moving on. Whoever is elected, we want to move forward after November 4th.
Speaking of voting and voting early, the president has often criticized mail-in ballots. He's often has stated that the election might be rigged, that he may not even accept the results of the election because of the mail-in ballots, and not really here in Massachusetts, but more in states like Nevada, where everybody gets a ballot. Unlike Massachusetts, it's requested by an absentee. I know it's more of a federal issue, but the post office, especially in the Flint, is always on the chopping block as something that may be closing. What's your thoughts on mail-in balloting? Do you support it? Early voting? I'll let you take it, Evan.
Sure. I think the issue brought up an important point in our national policies and also at the state level about accountability and making sure that we have the systems in place to handle mail-in ballots. The Secretary of the Commonwealth's office has laid out their own plan, but it's important that they work with the Postal Service in ensuring that ballots get delivered on time, ensuring that there are no issues. There's been claims of fraud. There's been claims of there's been concerns about the timing, but it shows the importance of investing in those systems and in the Postal Service, and also in the Secretary of the Commonwealth's office to make sure that they have the systems in place as well to make sure that ballots are properly counted and tabulated.
Representative Schmid?
Yeah, so the governor and the legislature passed legislation this spring broadening our ability to vote by mail, broadening our ability to, extending our ability to vote in person. And all of this has had a tremendous impact on our election boards and on our town clerks. And I was just at the election board in Fall River earlier today, and they have over a dozen people working to process sending out ballots and receiving the ones that come in. And look, all of us think this is really wonderful. It's all about giving people the ability to vote. But we also are concerned about fraud. Mm-hmm. And from listening to Bernadette, the town clerk in Westport, from listening to the election board here, they are taking extraordinary efforts, making extraordinary efforts to make sure that everything is done by the board. And here in Fall River, we received a grant from Mark Zuckerberg to augment our election board staffing so that we can do things like run the ballots through the counting machine prior to election day, so that your ballot, which you mailed in or which you brought by the city hall or which you cast voting early, so that your ballot will be processed and then locked up again This is going to allow us to not have a election day difficulties about processing all the in-person ballots and the mail ballots. Hats off to what they're doing.
If I could for a second,
Go ahead, rebuttal.
with early voting, for our listeners out there looking for more information on early voting, I know there can be a lot of, it can be confusing to find the right information. So anyone listening, if you go to our Facebook page, Evan Gendreau for State Representative, you can find a graphic where we detail in each of the 4 towns in the district, Westport, Fall River, New Bedford, and Freetown, the days, the location, and the hours of early voting.
Representative Schmid, one of the issues that came up during your tenure as a representative was one on flag football. Talk a little bit about that, and why was that one of the issues of your tenure as a state representative?
Yeah. Talk to me a little bit more about that, Will.
Well, the flag football, was that an issue that you talked about as a state representative, about possibly doing away with it as being too violent or head concussions?
Yeah, I did file a bill, and this was a good example of a bipartisan bill. I filed it with the minority leader. We attended a seminar 2 summers ago, and we heard that there's very compelling evidence from doctors that hits to the head are bad. And the earlier they start, the worse it is. Hockey, lacrosse, and soccer have all taken steps to eliminate hits to the head for kids under 12. Football hasn't taken that step yet, and the bill that we offered would have gone a long way toward cutting back on the number of hits to the head for youngsters. It was just a matter of public safety.
And did the bill make its way to the governor's desk, or was it held in committee?
The bill is still in committee. It's a subject that needs a lot of socialization. We need to talk about it. But by the way, it's having a good effect, because we're finding that the local football leagues are really looking much more seriously at the issue of hits. So even if the bill never passes, I feel it's going to make good steps for the safety of our kids.
Evan, if elected, you'll be representing 2 of the largest cities in Massachusetts, both Fall River and New Bedford. And although they're same in a lot of ways, they're also vastly different. When you look at the economies of the 2 cities, New Bedford and Fall River, as a state rep, what would you do to help improve economic growth? And can you point out any places where the current state representative maybe has failed?
Sure. Just on the football issue, if I could.
Sure.
A lot of people have reached out to me on that issue as well, and I've heard a lot of different opinions on it. To me, it's important now that we focus on the pandemic and reopening, but if that bill does come out of committee onto the floor, what I'm hearing from a lot of people in the field and stakeholders is that investing in different equipment and better equipment is the key, and different training for coaches and medical staff. But a government ban is not the answer. I think it just has to do with more overreach by Beacon Hill on different issues. But
were you looking for a government ban, State Representative Schmid, on flag football or touch football?
We were looking to make progress on the safety of our kids.
Okay.
How that happened, we would much prefer that the football associations themselves do it themselves.
Getting back to the economy.
Sure. So with the economy, like you mentioned, this district is very diverse. You have Westport and Freetown, which are more rural and suburban communities, and then Fall River and New Bedford, which have their own unique challenges as well. It's important that we have a targeted education and workforce policy coupled together, because oftentimes with job creation and economic development, you see essentially a Band-Aid in creating a government program that doesn't necessarily follow through on the full, down to the root of the issue. So it's important that we have a robust education policy that's coupled with a workforce development policy, so we can ensure that there are people that can fill jobs that our employers are looking to fill, and also create jobs as well. And it has to do with deregulation and lowering the tax burden, so more employees can be hired, so we can grow our economy. And I think that's an important issue, perhaps now more than ever. In our state, over the last 8 months, we've had over 1 million people file for unemployment. The current unemployment rate in Massachusetts, just released this morning, is number 6 in the nation. It's 9.6%. So these issues are important now more than ever, and it's important that we support our local businesses and reduce the tax and regulatory burden on them and our working families to get people back to work.
Representative Schmid, we know what you've done in the past. If you want to touch a little bit on your past stuff as a state rep when it comes to the economy, but I want to really focus more on the future. If elected and given another 2 years, what are some of the initiatives you want to bring forward for economic growth in this area?
Sure. That's a good question. You know, the basis of economic development in this region really is education, because the old days of being able to get a job in a mill and support a family without even a high school degree, maybe even without speaking English, are gone. And we all know that employers, when they're looking to expand or looking to relocate, are focused on the education of the workforce. And I'm very proud of the fact that, working with my colleagues, we passed an education bill last fall, which over the next 7 years will increase the per pupil spending in Fall River from $13,000 per student to $20,000 student. Now, it's going to be affected by the pandemic, but the legislature has made a commitment to communities like New Bedford and like Fall River that we are going to change the inequities in education that have been caused by education being paid for by local property taxes. And I think that Student Opportunity Act is going to make all the difference in the world for our young people and for our economy.
Evan, you're running as a Republican. Although the governor is a Republican, the Senate is mostly Democrat. The House is Democrat. The Speaker of the House, Robert DeLeo, is a Democrat. You would be going up to Boston in the minority party, representing a district that sometimes the people of this district feel they're overlooked. As a Republican in a mostly Democratic-dominated environment, how would you make headway up there?
That's such a good point that you made about this region being overlooked. It's important that we have an advocate for the South Coast up at the State House. It's important that we have a different voice, a new voice for the people down here, because it is an area that's been overlooked, as you mentioned. There's so much potential here, particularly with, as we just discussed, with education. I mean, working at the Policy Center, I looked at a lot of the data pertaining to potential here in the South Coast. There's opportunities in STEM, in investing in our blue economy. There's potential with trades as well. I think it requires creative solutions, new creative solutions. And that's what I represent. Regarding the partisan divide on Beacon Hill, I've been dedicated to bipartisanship and bipartisan efforts. There's common ground that we can all work towards, and I'm deeply committed to that as well. Our governor has shown his ability to reach across the aisle, and I'll do the same.
We'll take a commercial break. You're listening to State Representative Paul Schmid and Republican challenger Evan Gendreau. Both are running for election in the 8th District for the state representative seat here in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. We'll take a quick commercial break. We'll be right back here on WSAR.
Autobart. Hey, Joe. I mean, I know it's been a fun month without Manny, but am I seeing double? Did I screw up when I unplugged it and now there's 2 of them?
No, Jeff. You can't unplug this one. Virtual Manny was too easy on you last month, so I'm back.
Oh, yeah, but the numbers were great, weren't they, Manny?
Not by prestige standards, Jeff, but that was a good month. But now the 2 of me watching all of you, we're going to make these numbers double for the month of October. How does that sound?
Sounds like you want me to work twice as hard.
I don't think you know what hard work is, Jeff, but you're about to find out.
Oh, boy. So come on, folks. Come down to one of Prestige Autobot's 3 great locations and choose from over 700 100 cars, trucks, minivans, SUVs of all makes and models, all with interest rates from 1.9 APR, 0 down payment, and guaranteed credit, or the car is free. Prestige Automart, Westport, East Providence, Taunton, or PrestigeAutomart.net, and see why Prestige Automart is a better way to buy a car.
See dealer for details. 3 myths about Question 1.
I heard it helps local mechanics.
Actually, Question 1 is funded by corporate supply chains, like AutoZone and O'Reilly repair shops. Question 1 does nothing to help independent mechanics.
Isn't it right to repair?
Nope. Massachusetts already has right to repair, and it works great. Independent mechanics are guaranteed access to all the data they need to fix your car. The corporate supply chains just want to sell your data.
But we control our data, right?
Wrong. The full Question 1 legislation is 5 pages long. You should read the fine print. Question 1 requires all the telematic data stored in your vehicle to be put on an open digital platform. Anyone who knows how to use it could get your personal data. Question 1 is dangerous. Vote no on 1. Keep your data safe. Paid for by the Coalition for Safe and Secure Data.
Take back your unused or expired prescription medications at the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration's National Prescription Drug Take-Back Day, Saturday, October 24th. To find a collection site near you, please visit DEATakeback.com.
St. Anne's Credit Union takes pride in their financial literacy efforts in local schools and within the community. These educational programs offer the financial building blocks for the future leaders of tomorrow. If you're a school administrator or local nonprofit, St. Anne's Credit Union can work on developing a tailored program specific to your needs. Their experts specialize in money management programs for all ages, including adults, all at no cost to you. Call 1-877-ST. Anne's. Visit StAnnes.com, that's STANNES.com, or stop by your nearest branch to learn more. St. Anne's Credit Union. We're making a difference.
Now, another typical day in the life of the Parker family.
Good morning, sweetie. I've got a honey-do list for you.
Oh, isn't that lovely?
Mrs. Sousa's new hybrid is getting sap all over it from our old maple tree. Maybe you can cut that branch hanging over her driveway.
Oh no, Mrs. Sousa is going to kill me. She just bought her new hybrid a week ago.
Sweetie, relax. How can you forget? It's okay. Call RDA.
Rua Dumont Audette Insurance for all your personal and business insurance needs. RDA Insurance provides coverage for home, auto, boat, business insurance, life, health, disability, and a full array of financial services. Visit RDA Insurance at any of our locations in Fall River on North Main Street, in Taunton on County Street, or our New Bedford location on Ashley Boulevard. Visit us at rda-insurance.com. It's okay. Call RDA.
Bringing you the local news affecting your life, no matter where you are. Your source for local news and local views. 1480 WSAR and WSAR.com. Now, the Will Flanagan Show on 1480 WSAR and 95.9 FM Fall River. To talk with Will, call 508-673-1480. 508-673-1480. Now, here's Will Flanagan.
And welcome back to the Will Flanagan Show here on WSAR. And joining me in studio is the Democratic nominee for the 8th District State Representative seat, Paul Schmid. The incumbent is challenger, the Republican, Evan Gendreau. Representative Schmid, with the pandemic, it certainly has changed the way people normally campaign. How have you been getting out there to get your message out to the voters, besides coming on programs like this?
So I've done, as many people have, I've done a lot of work on social media. This has really changed things for the way people campaign. In addition, I've actually found that in the past couple of months, it's possible to go door to door. And I am not finding pushback as long as you stay 6 feet apart and wear a mask I think people like to see their elected officials out asking for their vote, and that's what I've been doing for the past 2 months.
I want to get your thoughts on something a little different, Evan. Trick-or-treating. October 31st is coming up. You hear the state representative saying he's been going door to door, not getting much pushback. But Fall River next week may be in the red for a third straight week, which means we may have to have some restrictions placed on us. Trick-or-treating, good idea, bad idea?
It's a tough question, and one that I would defer to the public health experts on. But if it does proceed, it's important that everyone takes the necessary precautions that have been laid out by the governor and by the CDC, which is mask wearing, 6 feet social distancing, limiting physical interaction or eliminating physical interaction. So there are measures that we can all take to prevent the spread of coronavirus. And with campaigning as well, it's affected the way that campaigns are run. It's not a typical year in any sense of the word. It changed the way that we get on a ballot. It's changed our methods in terms of outreach. But we're focused on direct voter outreach. We've knocked on thousands of doors in a safe manner. We've had an increased investment in social media and phone calls to constituents. We've remained open and accessible to those who ask questions and need our help with certain issues. So even with the challenges brought on by the pandemic, we've remained accessible and we've run a multifaceted campaign.
Time for the closings. Representative Schmid, you go first.
Thank you very much, Will. And again, my thanks to you and to WSAR. And also my thanks to my opponent. We are very happy to see young people throwing their hat in the rings because they do represent our future. When people look at my candidacy, I think they can see a record of service. I've served this district for 10 years, and I think they can see a record of performance. In those 10 years, we've passed the important Student Opportunity Act that I discussed earlier, groundbreaking for our education system. We are very close to bringing South Coast Rail back to this area. For many years, we felt that we were overlooked by Boston. I think that everybody agrees now, because of the strong delegation we have here, my colleagues, Representative Fiola and Sylvia in Fall River, and Senator Rodericks, we have turned the tables on that, and bringing South Coast Rail is just one piece of evidence. In Westport, we have repaved Route 88 and John Reed Road leading down to East Beach. We've provided $40 million for a new middle and high school. We have brought $250,000 seed money for the slaughterhouse that has made such a difference to our local farmers. We've provided funding for the head of Westport to make it the extraordinary place that it is now for all of our citizens. So that's what I stand on, my record of performance, and thank you very much. I ask for your vote.
Evan Gendreau.
Thank you, Will, and thank you to WSAR, and thank you to Representative Schmid as well. I'm running because our district deserves a new voice at the State House. If you're tired of seeing increased taxes and taking more of your paycheck every week, if you're tired of seeing less government accountability and transparency at the State House, if you're tired of seeing efforts to defund the police, then I humbly ask for your vote on November 3rd. The truth is, if our delegation was strong in the South Coast, then we wouldn't be overlooked. And I think it's important that we have a different perspective and a new voice representing the people of Westport, Fall River, New Bedford, and Freetown that will stand up for fiscal responsibility, stand up to support our police officers and public safety officials, and will call for increased accountability and transparency.
That is Evan Gendreau, the Republican challenger. Paul Schmid, the Democratic incumbent. Both candidates are running for the 8th Bristol District here in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Election Day is Tuesday, November 3rd. They're both asking for your vote. Gentlemen, thank you very much for coming on. You're listening to The Will Flanagan Show. We'll be right back after these words.
This is the legendary AM 1480, WSAR Fall River, and W240EB Fall River at 95.9 FM.